radionowhere.it, io sono Steve e questa è una nuova puntata di Radio Nowhere Meets. Insieme a me ci sono ovviamente il nostro editore Giacomo, ciao Jack,
Ciao a tutti, buonasera.
e il nostro caporedattore Raffo.
Ciao.
Ospite di questa puntata è Daniel Colussi, che presenta il suo progetto Fortunato Marinetti, insomma, che ha avuto tante recensioni positive sulla stampa italiana. Abbiamo scoperto grazie a Onda Rock e ad altri siti specializzati e quindi non abbiamo perso tempo, abbiamo subito colto la palla al balzo per intervistarlo. Good evening, Daniel. I know it's a bit earlier in the day where you live, così, per chi non sapesse è canadese, quindi immagino che sia pieno pomeriggio. Lascerei la parola a Raffo per la prima domanda.
Okay. Um, the first question is: we discovered your music by reading some reviews in some Italian musical websites. There was one of these review. Tell that your songwriting is some way similar to Cohen, Lou Reed, Wyatt. Are these artists influences for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I love Lou Reed and Robert Wyatt and John Cale and all that kind of period in the mid 70s when people seemed like there was lots of people who sort of followed their own kind of weird path of songwriting and tried doing different things album to album and developed their own sort of weird style that was sort of commercial and sort of not commercial. Like I love all that stuff. Robert Wyatt, Kevin Ayers, Nico, Lou Reed, John Cale, all the Joni Mitchell stuff from the mid '70s on. Annette Peacock. Yeah, I mean, I love those people because it always seems really personal but universal and idiosyncratic. And so I like those people. Yeah, for sure. I think about their music all the time.
Okay, Daniel, in our interviews, we like to start by talking about the guest artistic's background, his past. In this case, Fortunato Durutti Marinetti is just the latest stage name you have stitched on yourself
Yeah.
over the course of a rather long career. What characterizes each of your musical projects and what distinguishes one from the others?
I mean, I guess, I mean, I'm turning 42 this year, and I started playing in bands when I was in high school. So I've just gone through all those phases that people go through of playing in like punk rock bands, like noise rock bands, pop bands, and dream pop and things. So yeah, I'm in some ways like there's some of those people who even when they're like 18 or 20, they just sort of have their style and they know what their style is and what they want to do, and it feels like they're just fully formed and they know how to just keep refining it. But I guess for me it's been more of a just kind of aimless zigzagging around different styles and playing in different bands. Well, the thing I did before Fortunato Durutti Marinetti was a thing called the Pink Lincolns, and it's kind of just me songwriting solo, but it was more of a kind of guitar-based, sort of strummy style music. I was really into like New Zealand 80s bands from New Zealand, and it was more kind of home recorded music, I guess, in that tradition of home recorded 4-track music. Before that, I was in a band called the Shilohs that was a really like kind of a slick pop band that was kind of like the Beach Boys and like the Flying Burrito Brothers and stuff like that. And so I don't know. I just gone through all these different phases, and I think I'm just like a slow learner and a late starter. It just took me a really long time to develop my own style. So I didn't really develop my own style till I was in my like late 30s, you know. So I'm just like a bit of an underachiever.
Now
I don't know.
Spotify describes your music, the Fortunato Marinetti project, as
Yeah.
poetic jazz rock. Do you agree with that? Where can we find? Do you think we can find poetry and jazz and rock in this new project you launched?
I hope so. I mean, I think I just made up that term one day when I was like driving to work, and it was sort of just a joke to me because you meet people and they're like, "Oh, you play in a band? Like, what is it like?" And I'm like, you know, I would just say things. And there's a point where I was like, "Oh, I'll just tell people this kind of as a joke." But lots of things that sort of start as a joke and then it sort of seems more real over time. So I think I like just saying that term because I made it up, and it's a way to set my own music apart from anything else because it's like a genre of just one person. It's like just me. So that just feels comfortable to be like my own lane that I drive in and no one else drives in it. So it could sort of be anything, but I try to make it jazzy, and it doesn't really rock that much, but I try to make it sort of poetic and jazzy, and it kind of rocks. So I think it's semi-accurate.
The first album you released under this new stage name is called Desire. Released in 2020. We all know what happened throughout 2020. Since it is an album that dives deeply into the human condition, and it was made before the pandemic, how do you think the events that may have influenced listener interpretations of the themes and message contained in the album, have evolved? Maybe they found themselves somewhere inside the album.
Yeah, that's always weird because it was recorded, obviously it was written. I guess I must have written that stuff in about maybe 2018, 2019. I think the cassette came out, I guess in 2020. So it doesn't anticipate the pandemic at all. Obviously I had no idea, but I remember when it came out and there was some reviews for it and people seemed to connect it with the pandemic. But I think the truth is, like, in my experience of releasing stuff, like, you never really know how people will receive it or interpret it. And so it makes sense that if people discovered it in that time, because the pandemic was so crazy, that you would link those things in your mind. But the reality is, I think those songs were just written just the same way as any other album I've done, which is just observing the people around me and things happening in the city around me and happening to friends and loved ones. And so I don't know, people have maybe mentioned that a few times, the pandemic thing, but it's sort of pure coincidence, I think. It just, I don't know.
All right.
But you are a visionary.
Sort of wizard.
Do you think of people reaction to your music when you write or not?
I guess somewhat, because I imagine there being some small level of listenership, and I think about people's reaction when I'm like sequencing the album. Always seems really important to me because I always feel like that with albums. The order of the songs can really change the whole character of it. So, and even when I'm writing stuff, I'm trying to think of things in terms of a full album that's probably going to be around 40 minutes. So I'm trying to, sometimes if it's too much of one thing, it's like I should try and write something that's faster if there's just slow songs, or I should try and write something that's hits different emotions or different ideas. So I think about things in that way. But yeah, you'd never really could know or control how something will be interpreted. So that you also, once you kind of release something, I think you kind of have to just sort of let it go, and people will take what they want. Sometimes people seem to take things from it that, I have no idea what it means, Lots of times it's just sort of jokes and humor and things and like that I don't know if that comes across to people who hear it. So you kind of just let it go. If that makes sense.
With that said, I think we can start listening to one of the songs we selected for this interview. If you're watching on YouTube, unfortunately, you cannot hear the song, but you'll be able to hear them on radionover.it. Song is called Wordless. Wordless, Fortunato Durutti Marinetti, siamo di nuovo nella nostra nuova puntata di Radio Nowhere Meets con Jack e Raffo a farmi compagnia e intervistare questo artista così, che abbiamo scoperto grazie a riviste specializzate, che ci ha colpito e ha colpito molto anche la stampa italiana. Raffo, vuoi fare una domanda a te magari adesso?
Ma sì, io mi ricollego al tour italiano. I'm gonna read the Italian dates. You will be in tour in Italy in a few days, in a few weeks, and so we have 8 aprile Bologna, Freak Out Club, 9 aprile Ravenna, Bronson Caffè, 10 aprile Firenze, NOF, 11 aprile Roma, Fanfulla, 12 aprile Foligno e Circolo Subasia, e 13 aprile Perugia, Tyran Records. So you were born in Italy, and now you have an Italian tour. Is there something particular about you and Italy? What you're feeling about Italy, and do you listen to some Italian artists, some Italian music?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's awesome to go back there, and my girlfriend, my partner, has family outside Napoli and outside Rome. So that's really good to be able to go back and see some people. And I've never toured there before, but Quindi Nicolo helped me with these dates, so I am totally excited and ecstatic. I can't wait to go and travel around, meet people, and play these shows. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm getting ready for that now. So so that's gonna be really fulfilling for me. In terms of music and stuff, I mean, I guess like Franco Battiato, some
Franco
of those
Battiato.
albums. Yeah.
One of our favorites.
Yeah, I mean, like his. That's someone that I respect because his art, his different eras of things he's done.
That was
over
completely
the decades.
crazy. You can't say
Yeah.
that.
It is, but it's so interesting, and it's so cool that one person's career could moved into so many different directions, and so it's sort of inspiring and cool to see someone who can do that and work in so many different forms. I remember hearing the really early ones. I worked at a record store, like the really early prog ones, because people I worked with, everyone loved that stuff. But I never knew until years later this sort of like synth pop. And anyway, it's a crazy career, but it's really cool. Other stuff. What did Nicola send me? Claudio Rocci.
Claudio Rocchi.
Yeah, that's new for me. But Quindi sent me a record the other week, so I've been listening to that recently. The truth is, I listen to a lot of like American and British stuff. Honestly, like I should do better. I should try harder.
Okay, Daniel, talking about your tour, you will bring your new album, Eight Waves in Search of an Ocean.
Yeah.
And what challenges did you face in moving from a more acoustic sound to a more synth pop direction on your latest album?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like in every sort of phase of the stuff I've been doing, there's always a big challenge between the recorded versions of things and playing live or playing live solo. Like there's lots of songs that just have never been performed live that I'd like to do, but they just exist as studio recordings. So, and that's probably because I was moving to some different cities and this and that. I didn't really have a band sometimes. So I have a really amazing band I play with now who can play lots of things really well, which I'm really happy about. But for Italy, it'll just be me solo. So it was a big crisis of the heart and mind to figure out what to play and how to play and how to do it. So I got this thing. I got a sampler that I've never used before, and so it took me a while to get in the zone, but I kind of feel like I figured out a set that will be sort of the mix of the two sides of some things that are sort of just guitar and vocals and some things that are more synthetic and electronic. And it kind of helped me get back in touch with the spirit of that last album, which is a mix of organic, flowy things and sort of rigid electronic things. Which is all to say that, yeah, it was a learning curve. It was weird. I was getting really stressed out a few weeks ago because I was like, what am I going to do? It makes me sad to lose songs sometimes that never get performed. And like Wordless Morning, like that song, I've never played it live. I kind of forgot that song existed. But I remember I was like, oh, I used to really like that song, but it only exists on that album. So... But I think I figured something really cool out for this tour for a one-man band. I think it's going to be cool and it's going to kind of bridge the gap. And it brought me back into the mental space of working on that album.
A couple of weeks ago, before your interview, our last interview was with Steve Wynn, that was gonna make in your same period a solo tour with Chris Kakavas in Italy, and he told us that Italy is his favorite place to play solo show. Because it can create a connection with the audience that doesn't happen in other places. So good luck with that. And, listen to Steve.
I will follow Steve's example as best I can. Yeah, I mean, when the other album came out, I had the opportunity to play in Spain because a Spanish label put that one out, and that was my first time playing shows in Europe, but it felt very different than North America. The shows were really fun, people were really cool, and it did feel more personal and more of a connection than playing North America. Canada and the US can be, I don't know, it's a different vibe and different expectations. The crowd is kind of different, so fingers crossed that I don't disappoint people in Italy. I will try my best not to.
We've spoken about your music and how you play it live in the studio. I'd just like to focus just 1 second on your lyrics, because they're rich in imagery, they're rich in metaphors. And how's your writing process? What inspires you the most when you write your lyrics?
I guess just try to listen to things that people are saying around me, phrases and things, and reading the news and reading books and essays and trying to see how other people form sentences and how other people write a paragraph and express their ideas and try and think about how other people do it. And I try to just always be collecting things from the world that are there, sort of floating, and trying to be receptive to things that are out there, and try and sort of write lyrics the way I would write like an essay or something for school, where you'd sort of have an introduction and a middle and a conclusion, and try and format it in a way that could bring people in some way, even if they form their own idea or it's a bit obtuse, but try and structure things in a way that theoretically someone can get into it. And I don't really like lyrics that are sort of inscrutable or that don't seem to, I kind of like to try and work through an idea really thoroughly and keep turning it over. That's why I've done a lot of things, but I guess I'm also trying to, I really like lately, like listening to a lot of hip hop and rap albums because they can lyrically go through so many ideas so quickly. Like almost every line or two can be a self-contained idea, and it can really advance. And so I'm trying to think about how to cover more ground and not just narrow in so much. But
you know who did that? Battiato. His lyrics were like stories you could picture in your mind. And it doesn't even have to be a story you can understand at the first listen, but sometimes when you listen to one of his songs like 2, 3, 4 times, you get the picture and you imagine the story, and it has a conclusion most of the times. So
right.
I guess your lyric style could be similar to some of his songs.
I take that as a compliment. Yeah, that's kind of the ideal that you want.
It sure is a compliment. Here you are talking with 3 people that love Battiato.
Ok, questa era l'ultima domanda che avevamo per il nostro ospite. Ci lasciamo sulle note di un'altra canzone, si chiama Lightning on a Sunny Day. Vi ricordo di seguirci sui social, chiaramente su radionuovo.it, c'è la nostra app gratuita iOS Android, e niente, ci vediamo poi alla prossima puntata di Radio Nuovo Mix, e ci vediamo molto presto con una cosa molto importante, cioè il Social Rock Contest, che insomma stiamo cucinando, no? e aspettatevi novità molto presto.
E ascoltate il nuovo album di Fortunato Marinetti e andate a vedere i suoi concerti. Listen to Fortunato Marinetti record and go to his Italian shows. Thank you for being with us, Daniel.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you guys reaching out, and it's nice to meet you online.